What's up and welcome back to Next Door Conversations with me, Amara. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about social media. Yes, social media. My unfiltered thoughts on social media, on the social media landscape. I know I have gained a reputation of being a social media girl, but I promise you, I'm probably the most anti-social media person you will ever meet. I know it sounds ironic because I run a whole social media commentary podcast, and how can you say you really hate the thing if you're always on the thing? I have been on social media for the past almost 2 years, getting information for this podcast. We literally, so many of our episodes you hear me saying, and the people on social media are saying, they're reacting, they're doing, I'm always giving commentary on that. And while that is fun and good, social media is not my whole life. In fact, I am trying to shed myself of social media use. So we are going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the effects on social media on the entire generation, guys. So it's not just me. And definitely there are some research-backed points, lots of things to take away. So this episode is definitely going to be a good one. Hi, if you're hearing my voice for the first time, my name is Amarachi, and this is Next Door Conversations, my podcast where I talk about trending news, viral content, what's happening on social media and in the world at large. If you like what you're listening to, make sure that you're following the podcast, ring this notification bell so every time I drop an episode you get a notification. And also don't forget to share this episode with a friend, because I'm sure there's someone in your circle of friends that's interested in topics like these. And don't forget to give this podcast a rating. This is a 5-star podcast, so please give me 5 stars. And without too much yapping, let's get straight into today's episode. So social media, guys. I remember joining social media, like my very first exposure to social media was probably when I was in just one. I remember because prior to that I was using Nokia Touchlight. Literally my mother bought me Nokia Touchlight, and that was what I was using, which I wasn't even really using, because literally I was just playing Snake Zentia and soccer on that phone. There was no one to call except my mom and my dad, and maybe sometimes a few of my primary school friends, when we're on holiday, and I'll be like, oh, how are you? I'm fine, and all that stuff. Didn't even have credit, because I remember that time I literally have to, I'm 100% sure that I used to steal like 100 naira, 200 naira from my mom's purse just to buy credit on my phone so I can be able to text my friends. But nostalgia, I'm feeling certain. Anyway, forget my feelings. So just one, I got a BlackBerry. Yes, I remember, was it a C2? I think it was a BlackBerry C2, and it was one of the phones my mom bought 2 BlackBerries that time. She traveled to China and she bought 2 BlackBerries, and I got one, she got the other one, and I was using the BlackBerry to do BBM, which I did not even have anybody on BBM, because obviously everyone I know is literally like 11 years old. So I was using it for BBM. I was also using it for Facebook, and by that time, was that Twitter? I think by that, no. I started Twitter in just 3. That was my first time starting Twitter, or not the Twitter that I'm using now. I know it's insane to think about, but yes, I had a very early exposure to social media. As I'm sure a lot of people from Gen Z did have a very early exposure to social media, and that has totally impacted the kind of individuals that we are now in our adult age. We have a more clear understanding of the effects of social media, of how social media has ruined certain lives, and how social media has totally made people's careers take off. So much that social media has done for so many people, and so many ways social media has affected a lot of people, especially these Gen Alphas, with this Coco Melon generation, guys. Literally from the womb, they are given screens. I think they call them iPad kids in the US. Screens on their faces from as young as 2. So it sounds so strange to me, but I'm sure to a millennial, hearing that I was using Facebook or BBM in just one would also sound really weird. So I decided there's no better time than now to actually share some of my thoughts on social media use amongst our generation, and the possible impact it may have on the coming generation Alpha. So I listed some things here in bullet points, and we're going to be discussing them. The first thing I listed is that social media is not a good place to find belonging. Believe me, in my over a decade's experience on surfing the web, I can tell you for a fact that social media is not a good place for you to be finding belonging. If you are someone that is trying to find a place in this world, social media is not the place to go. A study published on Sage Journals on cyber psychology, behavior, and social networking actually explored the relationships between individuals' frequency of online interactions and their motives, more specifically, their motivation for a sense of belonging. And the study found an increased usage frequency fueled by a desire to belong. Now, while another study published on Springer found that the sense of social media belonging is associated with a lower psychological maladjustment, it comes with the trade-off of people being predisposed to social media addiction. So that's just a long way of saying that yes, your desire to find belonging on social media will fuel your frequency of using social media. And it's something that you don't quite pick up until you have someone that's actually pointing it out to you that, you're spending like 10 hours on these apps, you're spending 12 hours of your everyday on these apps, and like, why are you doing that? People often shrug it off and say, oh, I'm just using it to get myself entertained, to pass time in between my day. But in actuality, a lot of people are doing this thing because they want to feel connected to the world, or for the sake of getting, being a part of something. And social media sells you that lie that the more you use, the more interconnected you are with the world, the more possibilities for you to find your people. But that is often not the truth. And yes, I recognize that there are good stories, great stories about people finding their life partners online, people finding, great relationships online. But I would tell you, the amount of success stories are very small compared to the amount of failures. I'm sorry to call them failures, but yes, failed relationships online. There are so many people that they meet people, they are in their lives for barely like 3 weeks, and next thing they're not talking to each other. Or people that actually do make good relationships online, but for some reason, they aren't able to continue it offline. Also, this study did not account for cases of cyberbullying, people committing suicide because of social media exposure. And so while, yes, you can find belonging on social media, it is definitely not the best place for you to find that community or that belonging that you desire. And there are so many other places where you don't have to sacrifice so much to actually feel like you're a part of something. Social media I think it's because it's so easy, because it's not as hard as paying for an activity or going to the park or paying for a date or inviting someone into your home and cooking for them. It's very cheap in that sense. So it's a cheap way of meeting people. But unfortunately, you end up left with cheap relationships. The next point I highlighted, social media ruins your chances at making connections in real life. And yes, this is true, because I know for a fact that social media doesn't always guarantee connections and friendships. It seems easier to pursue these online relationships because of the accessibility, like I said, but the harder and more rewarding friendships are the ones that happen in real life, guys. And I stand by that. Look, I'll be the last person to judge anybody that is using social media as a means of meeting people. I'll be honest with the fact that when I was in med school, I was really struggling with making some friends. And so I decided to use this app, which is like I say love letters? It's not really love letters, but like pen pals. Yeah, a pen pals app where I'm able to talk to a whole bunch of people around the world. And I was able to make a lot of friends from that app, guy. And some of those friends that I made from that app, we still have relatively good relationships. I mean, there's one particular friend that I spoke to literally a couple of days ago. But I would say there are also a whole bunch of other friends that I made from that app that I haven't spoken to since I left the app. Just think about it. The amount of time I'm dedicating to text this person, maintain online interactions with this person. If I spent that much time and energy with a real life connection, I feel like it would be a lot more rewarding. I feel like I would have a lot more real life relationships and memories that I can look back on. I would be introduced to people in their circle. They'll be introduced to people in my circle. Like, it's just, you can't even compare. You really cannot compare. And that's why I believe like the return on investments is just, it's nothing. It's not good. So my third no shit statement or opinion that I'm going to share, guys, is that social media is addictive. Because obviously, guys, literally all our lives for the past like decade, we have been hearing social media is addictive. But really, it really is addictive. Research shows that social media addiction shares the core components with substance-related addictions, including salience, mood modification, tolerance, withdrawal, and relapse. So everything that the whole Euphoria cast experiences in that. By the way, Euphoria is back. Anyway, the whole thing that they experience in that show, guys, that is what a lot of us are experiencing, but we do not even recognize it because we think social media is not really affecting our physical health, but it has done a lot of damage on mental health, on the mental health of a lot of people in our generation. Social media use has been linked with anxiety, depression, mood disorders, loneliness, so many other things. And it also has an impact on your academic life, as well as your work performance and real life relationships, because like I said, the return on investment is not great and you're here started doing this thing because you feel it's, easier and cheaper, but really it's not worth it. So yeah, every notification, every new like, every new video with every swipe, it sort of triggers a dopamine release, and over time the brain becomes accustomed with that reward basically, and it starts to crave that reward. Have I dealt with social media addiction? You bet your ass I have. I can remember times in my life where I would just be on my phone, just scrolling on my phone. My phone would literally be showing me I have spent like 15 hours of today on my phone. Like I have opened my phone 1,000 times during that COVID period, yeah? Or periods where I'm just not doing anything with myself. I feel so disgusted with myself. I feel like a beast. I feel like someone that does not have control of her desires, and it just makes me feel very small. And so I've been very conscious of that, and I guess it wasn't really the best thing for me to run a social media commentary podcast. Social media definitely can be very addictive. I think we all need to work and do our best to ensure that this problem stops with our generation. Like, let's not push it on to the Gen Alphas who are coming into this world and experiencing these things. Because we all know how social media fucked us up. I don't need to state all the ways being exposed to all sorts of things fucked up our psyche, fucked up our perception of so many things. And I just don't think it's something we should pass on. So I'm really happy that I'm seeing, there was a whole lawsuit against the Meta in which the people that sued won. Their child committed suicide because of what she was exposed to on, I think Facebook or Instagram, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, now that I'm seeing people actually pushing back against all these big tech corporations that sort of feed off of our lack of attention or feed off of the attention economy, I think positive changes are coming about, and hopefully we can rid ourselves of this social media obsession. Now, the last thing that I wanted to highlight is the fact that conversations that actually change people's minds occurs in real life. The majority of times where I've had a change in opinion of a certain thing, on a certain topic, it's actually fueled by a conversation that I had with someone face to face. Like, I'm having a conversation with you face to face. I'm hearing what you're saying. You're hearing what I'm saying. I'm able to respond in a healthy, non-combative kind of way. I feel like that is where true change happens. But social media gives us the illusion, especially that stupid app called X, gives us the illusion that social media is the marketplace of ideas, and you can say what you want and you can tweet what you want, and so far as you have people in your echo chamber clapping for you and saying yes queen and saying you're doing right, you are actually right, which is not true. That is not true, guys. It's very important that you actually do have conversations with people on real life, because it will help you actually figure out if what's the stance that you have on a certain topic is actually true, if what you're saying is even real, if you're deep in reality. It will also give you the opportunity to create a solid defense for why you believe what you believe, and that is ultimately what will be able to convince someone else. It's not about repeating the same things that have often been said. It's about actually communicating, listening, responding, comprehending. Guys, also comprehending is another thing, and not just assuming malice. When you're having in real life conversations, the body language of the person, the way the person speaks to you, the words they use, their face, a lot of things can sort of soften the delivery of certain things that you say, as opposed to social media where you are just judged by the texts next to your profile picture. So yeah, those are just some of my unfiltered thoughts on social media, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I want to sort of change the dynamic of Next Door Conversations. I don't want this to just be a podcast. Like I've always mentioned, I appreciate the fact that I can come on here and talk my talk, share my commentary, but I also would like to create a space where all of us, even people that don't agree with me, people that I don't agree with, can be able to come together and talk it out and figure out, what is true and what is not true. I guess we'll just arrive at the truth. Just a place for healthy discussions, not like the sensationalized Jubilee or Cruise, something real, something community based. Yes, so I want to make it more of like a community thing. I'm working on it. I'm hopeful that people would be interested. Hopefully we may have our first in-person event very soon, and yeah, we are going to totally change the dynamic of this podcast, hopefully, by God's grace. Anyway, that's all I have to say on this topic. You let me know your thoughts on social media, as always, at Amara Next Door, at nextdoorpod_, at nextdoorpod everywhere on social media. including X. Yes, including X. Sorry. I'm used to saying except from X, guys. Including X. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye.